All right, guys, today we're going to be reviewing and testing some candles sent in by another subscriber by the name of Paulette and her company, January Remington. You guys know I love doing these, so hopefully you're excited for this one. My name is Wade. I'm the owner of Black Tie Barn, and of course I run this YouTube channel to help other candle makers and candle business owners. So if you would like to see more content, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let me tell you real quick a little bit about how these work. If you haven't seen any of the other reviews on the channel, and there are quite a bit, there's a whole playlist for them. The way this works is that these candles are sent in completely voluntarily, just looking for some feedback, constructive criticism, things I really like about the candles, things I would tweak or change if it were me. Basically just some overall feedback from another candle maker, someone that's been in the industry for a while. So again, I am not an expert when it comes to everything candle making. I don't have knowledge or experience with every kind of wax or oil or wick on the market, but I do have a pretty good foundation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and hopefully I can offer some insight as we get going. With that said, let's go ahead and dive in. One last thing to mention is we're going to start off by just unboxing them and looking at the packaging, the presentation, the labels. And one last thing, we're going to start off by opening the box and just looking at the label, the jar, the vessel, the surface of the wax, anything that we can just visually see by looking at it. And then I will also do some burn testing and provide my feedback on that as well. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to get everything out of the box before we start taking a look and see what we've got here. So it looks like we've got a couple different products here, pretty common. Before we do that, let's check out what we have as far as resources or literature. And we have a thank you card with some candle care instructions on the back. And then we've got two letters. The first of which is something that is meant to be read before we do the testing. So let me go ahead and read that real quick. Alrighty, so what Paulette decided to share was that she's been making candles for quite some time now. I think she started in the early 1990s, and she mostly does craft shows, affairs, booths, things like that, and farmers markets. So she's looking for some constructive feedback. She says a lot of the feedback she gets is always just kind of positive and reassuring rather than some actual constructive feedback to help her make her products a little bit better. So Paulette, I hope I can offer you a little bit of that insight today. And I'd like to also apologize to you and anyone else that's been waiting a while for the reviews. I've got really backed up, so I'm doing my best to catch up. And yeah, so thanks for being patient on that. Now, this other letter is the after letter. Now, what this letter means is, if you haven't seen the other reviews, sometimes I get a letter to open after I check out the products, and the point of that is so I can make some guesses on what kind of wax and wicks and things we're using, and then kind of check my results, like fact check myself at the end. It's just for fun. All right, so let's go ahead and set this one aside. We're gonna dive right into the products. All right, the first thing we're gonna start with is this wax melt. And like I always mention with wax melts, I don't do extensive testing with them here on the channel because there's just not a lot to talk about. I like to talk about how firm they are, the texture of them, and then if there's anything that's really noticeable, like extremely bad hot throw or something like that, then of course I'll mention that. But otherwise, this is pretty straightforward with the wax melts. But that being said, I do want to smell it. It's called Strawberries and Champagne. Interesting. So I was expecting it to be a little bit more sweet, you know, the strawberry in the name, but also I've had some of those fragrances that do make you think of like a carbonated beverage. This one doesn't really make me think of that. This is actually a floral, or at least that's all I'm really picking up, is it's a very nice kind of sweet pea type floral. So it's very good. I actually love florals personally. So I actually probably prefer this more than I would the Strawberries and Champagne anyways. Almost a little perfumey, but mostly floral. Yeah, so really nice. Again, if there's anything worth mentioning after I test this, I will. But let's go ahead and move on to the first candle. Now we've got two candles here. One's a 10, I think, and one's a jar. Let's go ahead and start with the 10. All right, so we have bubble wrapped in tissue paper. All right, these are those nice little kind of odd shaped 10s. I've seen these both at Makesy or Wooden Wick and also on Amazon and Hearts and Crafts. So these are really nice looking 10s. Now I could be wrong, they could be from somewhere else, but they are very, very nice, very modern looking. And I just got a whiff of that and it smells awesome. I don't know what it is. I think it's definitely got a touch of lemon or bergamot in it. And I love both of those. I'm a big Earl Grey tea fan, so that's kind of what I'm smelling is Earl Grey. And if that is really what it is, then I need to know more about it because I've been after a good kind of bergamot fragrance and I haven't really found a superb one yet. On the bottom, there is a nice custom warning label. And then on the top, the name of this is called Marcy and Grey. Okay, so Grey, Earl Grey, probably is Earl Grey. So I don't know what the Marcy stands for, Marcy. I don't know what that could be. I'm drawing a blank. What if Grey means Earl Grey, what could Marcy be? I don't know. Anyways, I like the name. That's if that is supposed to resemble like Earl Grey and the names are supposed to reflect the scent, that's a cool cool little touch. I like that's creative. It says luxury that travels, because this is a travel tin. And then it also says lady who lunches. So now I don't know exactly what Marcy and Gray means, lady who lunches. I'm a little confused on the branding a little bit, just my own opinion, my perspective on this. We know it's a travel tin, it says that. It also says a handmade soy candle. Those two are pretty self-explanatory. Then there's two things that I'm not sure if one of them is the name of the scent and the other is supposed to be some type of collection or branding, because on it, it says Marcy and Gray, and then it also says lady who lunches. I'm not sure which of those is supposed to indicate what. We know that the company name is January Remington. So yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I would want some clarification on that. And so far that'd be my only suggestion at this point, because visually these look really nice and clean and modern, but I'm a little confused on the branding, what's going on with the names. But like I said, I'm obsessed with the fragrance. I love the fragrance. All right, so we've got the lid off here. Hopefully, I'm not sure how well the camera will pick it up. But two things you'll notice right off the bat. One is that it's got a wooden wick. We'll talk about that here in a second. The other thing is the look of the wax itself. Now, I've already got two waxes in mind of what this could be, and I've narrowed it down just very, very quickly to either Golden Wax 464 or C3 or C6, whichever one is the only soy. For some reason, I just drew a blank on that. But I personally would lean a little bit more towards 464. I'm a little bit more familiar with that one than I am the others. It's got the classic kind of matte feel on top. It's definitely got some of that frosting on top. Then you can see where it was smoothed out with a heat gun, which is again is very, very common when you use that wax. And you can see how it kind of cooled that way. And you've got this unevenness with the color and the texture, the feeling of it. I would bet it's 464. Also, 464 has great cold throw, and this has fantastic cold throw. So that's where I'd put my money if I was betting on this as far as what type of wax we're working with. Now the wick itself, like I mentioned, is a wooden wick, and you also may have noticed inside it has an extra piece of wood in the middle. That is a booster wick, if the camera is going to show that. So these would be coming from Makesy most likely. If I had to guess on the size, I'd say this is either a 0.03 booster wick or a 0.04 booster wick. And then it's about a 5/8 inch width. And for this vessel, that seems like a lot. I mean, it's a wide wick and it's a very, very thick wick and it's got the booster in it. So with this tin, I would think that that's gonna be a little too large. But 464 being an all soy wax really does need that extra oomph when it comes to the flame. So it could be right on. I don't use a lot of 464 with wood wicks, so I'm not super familiar with it, but that would be my expectation, is they're really needing this wick just to make sure it's burning all the way across. But we will see. Final thought on this one, love the fragrance. Absolutely love the fragrance. All right, let's move on to the other candle we've got. And this feels like it's going to be a Libby Status Tumbler type jar. And it is. And it's a kind of a narrow one, which I like. Not as wide as your normal Status jars. I like it. It'll be a tiny bit easier to wick than the normal ones, because those normal ones can be a little challenging. All right, this one is, again, January Remington. The name of this one is Lavender Lemongrass. And this label is much more straightforward. So if you can see here, their logo for their brand name, January Remington, is at the top. The name of the candle is Lavender Lemongrass. And there's nothing else really on it that adds a little confusion. Unlike this first one, which I loved, but it was a little confusing, the label was. This one, very straightforward. If I had to prefer one of the labels, I would go with this one. It's also got a transparent warning label on the bottom. Very nice job. You can definitely tell you've been doing this for a while. And then if we'll look at the outside of this one, you are going to see that frosting, which is that kind of snowflake pattern or kind of white textured frosted pattern. Crystallization is basically what it is. It's very common with soy waxes if you're brand new to candle making. And you can see that developing definitely starting at the top, going about an inch down. And at the top, you're going to see it look pretty ashy as well. Yes, so you can see that in here. It looks a little ashy, which again is very, very common with 464. It does not mean you're doing anything wrong. For you new makers that are using this wax and seeing this, you might be thinking you're doing something wrong. You're not. This is pretty common, really normal. Even if you prevent it early on or do things to fix it temporarily, it almost always comes back, and often it comes back worse. So it does not mean you're doing anything wrong. It's the nature of working with mini soy waxes. Let's talk about the fragrance real quick. It's another lemon type scent. It's a lemongrass, which I definitely pick up. That is what you smell first. But the lavender works really nice to soften it a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of lavender by itself, but it works really, really good with other candle scents and fragrances to kind of add a little bit of complexity to them or to tone them down if another note is too strong. Now, you can't have a lemon that's too strong for me. I love it, but lavender works really, really well with lemon. So I'm not surprised to see this combination, and it smells really, really good. I personally prefer the other one, A, because it's a little bit more unique, but also because I just love bergamot, that whole fragrance. And now let's talk about the wick. This is interesting. I'm kind of messing with it, so you can't really see what I'm doing here. So it's probably hard to see this wick in the camera, but it is not a very super common wick that a lot of you are probably using. It's not a CD or an HTP. It's not a CDN. It's not a zinc. It's not an eco. It's not a Premier 700. You know, I kind of want to say it's a paper wick because it's got that kind of brownish interior core that looks like paper, but it's almost making up too much of the wick. So I've got three guesses I'd go with. One is it could be a paper wick that's just a little bit odd, a little bit different. It could be an RRD wick, which is a directional wick, and you don't see them sold by a ton of suppliers, but they are pretty common and they create very nice, robust flames that tend to work in pretty viscous waxes. So you don't see them a ton, but they can be used in a lot of different waxes. My hesitation with that one is it kind of feels like an RRD and it's shaped like round like an RRD, but the color's throwing me off. This has got kind of a yellowish color, and I've never seen an RRD have a yellowish color. Now, it could be because the fragrance oil in the wax has slowly started to discolor the wick, and a lot of organic waxes do that, so that is a possibility, a real possibility. Or the other option is a Performa wick, which again is not a very common wick, but it kind of has that look. It's actually the right color for a Performa wick, but it's not firm enough in my opinion. I'm kind of torn on this one. Paper wick, RRD, or a Performa wick. I really don't know. This one's a little weird. I'm really interested to test it out, and maybe that'll give me a little bit more insight, but if nothing else, it'll give me some more information, and that might add to the intrigue when we talk about how these things burn. That is where we are so far. Great looking candles, great smelling candles, absolutely great smelling candles. For people that don't like 464, you can say what you want as far as the negatives, but you can never say that they don't have great cold throw. Cold throw is one of the best parts of 464. So excellent job, excellent fragrances, great looking candles. Let's go ahead and get testing. All right, I'm done testing these two candles sent in by January Remington. We're gonna start with the Marcian Gray, or the lady who lunches, the gorgeous little white 10. That's the one we're going to start with. And unfortunately, we're not going to spend much time on this one. And the issue was with this one, I could not get this one to really burn, to stay lit. It is the one that had the wooden wick with the booster wick in the middle. And you'll see in some of this footage that it was a very, very small, weak flame. It got a little bit of a melt pool in the center, but it just kept wanting to die out. Now, with that being said, it had a good fragrance, and that's what was a little frustrating, is if this would have burned all the way across and would have stayed alive, then this candle would have been great, because the fragrance was really, really good. I like the look of the candle. I'm still a little confused on the label, the name, Marcian Gray, so hopefully that will be talked about in the comments section by the maker, just because I'm curious. I might be totally misunderstanding or misinterpreting the purpose of the name. So back to the actual candle itself. There's a couple things to consider here. First of all, wooden wicks are known to be a little inconsistent. So you might have made a batch of these and all of them test out really well, except for maybe the random one or two from each batch. That does happen with wooden wicks. I mean, it's mostly a natural wood product, and there's going to be some inconsistencies with it. That's pretty normal. And so this is par for the course a little bit, and sort of the nature of using wood wicks. Oh, I just sneezed. I've been smelling way too many candles and fragrances lately. Anyways, back to the candle. So that could be what's going on, just the inconsistent nature of wood wicks. Or this one could just need a little bit of a bump in the wick. Now, this one looked already pretty large to me. When I started this video, I think I probably even commented on that. So the only other thing you could really do is consider going with a dual wick or a thicker or wider booster wick, or you don't have to use a wooden wick at all with those. So those are really the options. I don't know how to tell you exactly which wooden wick to try. You'll just have to start incrementally going up in size. Or, like I said, if you made a bunch of these and normally they burn just fine, what I would suggest to you is to go back to one of these that you've made a while back and test it and make sure it's still burning fine. Because if you did a test burn when the wax was really not completely solidified, it might have looked like it was, but inside it was still kind of settling. It may have burned a lot easier. So go back to one of your older ones if you can and burn it and make sure it's still burning correctly. If it is, then chalk this up to possibly just an anomaly, or consider upping the wick size. All right, now we're going to move on to Lavender Lemongrass. This was the purple candle that was in the smaller sized Libby Status tumbler type jar, which I really liked, by the way. This one had great hot throw, so great fragrance. I'm partial to that fragrance anyways. I like lemongrass fragrances. So this was good as far as the hot throws go. And the cold throw on both of these was excellent. This one was a little weird the way it burned. It did eventually kind of catch up and burn just fine, but it took several hours. And I mean, kind of the 5 to 6 hour mark before it would really kind of get a good melt pool and then catch up the stuff on the side. Most consumers really only burn candles 2 to 3 hours at a time, sometimes up to 4. Most of us makers like to keep this guideline in mind, right? That we're trying to get a certain size of a melt pool in a certain number of hours. But customers don't know that. They just burn a candle when they want to burn a candle and they blow it out when they're done. And what the research shows is that usually it's in the 2 to 3 hour window, sometimes up to 4 hours. There are, of course, power burners as well. The reason I say all that is you might have an issue with this one catching up and sort of tunneling on you if a customer's only going to burn it for 2 or 3 hours at a time. However, just wicking up with your current wick might not give you the result you're after, because even with this size, it was getting pretty good mushrooms there towards the end or towards the middle of the candle. So you could either just try a different size, and that might solve your problem. Go up in size, maybe 1 or 2, or try a different wick type. I don't know exactly which type we're using here. We're going to find out in a minute. I got to find that open later letter, and we're going to see what we're using, and then I'll try to give a little bit more feedback. But overall, good candle. It's going to have that normal kind of weird look after the candle hardens and resets after each burn. You're going to see a little bit of frosting and discoloration. That's perfectly normal with soy waxes. And I still pretty sure we're using 464 here. We will find out. All right, let's get to that letter. That's my suggestions and feedback so far, but let's go ahead and dive into that letter. Oh, almost ripped the letter. Okay, let's see what we're working with. It says, "Dear Wade, here's the scoop." All right, the candle jar is a Libby jar. And that's the purple one we're talking about here. It is 464 soy wax. So we're right about that. And the wick is actually an RRD 37 wick. Now, I think that was one of the ones I mentioned in the first part of the video that it could be, because it looked like one with the exception of the color. I would say you can try a different size. They're using an RRD 37. You could try a size up or 2, but honestly, with the 464, most people have better luck with CD and Eco Wick, so I would give that a shot. See if it does better for you. Like I said, this wasn't bad, but I think there's some room for improvement on the way it burned. And then the fragrance oil is a 10% fragrance load. It's a mixture of lemongrass supreme and lavender. All right, now the white tin, is a 4-ounce tin from Hearts and Crafts. I'm pretty sure I got that right. I mentioned a couple places it could be, but I definitely see this style, this shape and style from Hearts and Crafts. I see them all the time, and they're really cool little tins. It's also using 464 wax, and the wick is a booster wick, 0.03, 5-inch. So 0.03 is the thickness. That's kind of the size of the wick, and then the half-inch is the width of the wick. Knowing that, I would try a 0.04, and then keep everything else the same and see if that works for you. If it doesn't, you still got a little room to play there. Because of the size you chose, it's kind of a middle thickness, middle size. You could go up to a 0.04, or you could try a dual wick if you think you might need it. I don't think you will, though. I think a 0.04 could be all the difference you need. And that fragrance is a mixture of black tea, bergamot, and lavender. All right, the bergamot is what I really love the most. The black tea, I definitely pick up on that as well. And then the lavender, a little bit. Like I said, the name of this was Marcian Gray, Lady Who Lunches. I'm still curious about the name of it, but I love the bergamot, love the black tea. I love the scent on this candle. And then the wax melt, which I didn't talk about, other than the wax being used for the wax melt, is BW Blended Waxes 921. You can get that from Candle Science, or just blended wax them directly, or from other places as well. It looks like they do a lot of shopping from Candle Science, so I'm assuming that's where it came from. It is a pillar wax. It's meant to make wax melts, and it's a good wax for doing that, so no complaints there. And that had a larger fragrance load of 13%. All right, so I think overall, fact checking myself, I did a pretty good job here. I think the only thing I got wrong or at least wasn't super sure on, was the wick and the lavender candle. I mentioned RRD, but I wasn't very confident about it. Don't see that one as much, especially by new makers. So thank you, Paulette, for sending these in. I apologize again for it taking this long to get to them. Thank you for being patient. I hope you enjoyed the review and some of this feedback, and hopefully it helps you out a little bit. I also hope that things are going well for you since you sent these in. I'd love to hear what your thoughts on this and anything that you want to share in the comment section below. Thank you all for tuning in as well and watching these and supporting other candle makers in the community. If you guys like these kind of videos and you appreciate the maker sending these in, give this video a thumbs up and let us know in the comments as well. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.